Hello, I'm Pamela Davis. Welcome to episode 128 of the Well Done Life podcast. Hello, and welcome back to episode 128 of the Well Done Life podcast. I'm your host, Pamela Davis. If you are new here, hey, how are you? Welcome. I am so glad that you are here with us this week. If you've been here before, you guys know the deal. I love you deep, and I'm just grateful that you're back. So thank you for continuing to support. Before we get started with this week's episode, you guys know I like to be very foundational. I really feel like we're building a safe space, and I treat this like a house. So with that, I want to make sure that our foundation is strong, and we're building it on two very important things, and that's clarity and love. Clarity is really straightforward. I just want to make sure that you understand why you're here. The Well Done Life podcast is a podcast that I created for women. I created this space because women are the foundation of society, and we need places where we can grow and learn and share with each other. So that is what this space is for. So welcome. Then that leads me into my favorite thing, and that is always going to be the root of everything that we do in this space, and that is love. I want you to feel loved when you're in this space with me. I want you to feel like you are cared for, you are thought of, you are revered, because you are. So with that, I like to make sure that I send love. I like to send prayers to you. Every week, I want to make sure that I am sending you prayers because I want you to know again that you are thought of in the highest regard. So this week, I want to make sure that I'm sending you prayers of peace. I want to make sure that you know that everything that you are trying to aspire for is going to work out. You can do this. Don't give up on yourself. Always remember that you betting on yourself is the best bet that you can ever make. So I want you to keep going and keep pushing yourself. I also want to make sure that I am sending you prayers of, how do I say this? I want to send you prayers of knowledge of self. And what I mean by knowledge of self, I want you to know that it is okay for you to pull back in situations that don't serve you. I want you to know that you don't need to match energy, that you don't need to second guess, you don't need to doubt. You can be your most authentic self in any situation when you are surrounded by the right people. Take that for exactly what it is. Because a lot of times it's really easy for us to kind of shift and move and change who we are because we're around different people because we feel like we can control an outcome. Just remember, it's not about controlling the outcome. It's about being your most authentic self. Because when you are your most authentic self, you know that you are surrounded by God and your ancestors and the universe just trying to aspire for you to achieve the things that you seek. You don't have to manipulate your thoughts, your feelings, your actions in any situation when it is for you. Because remember, like Rumi said, what is you are seeking is seeking you. So rest comfortable in that knowledge. I also want to make sure that I am sending you prayers of love because love is the thing, like we talked about a few minutes ago. And I want you to feel love from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. And so make sure that you surround yourself in love at all times. And then finally, abundance, because we've been talking about abundance. And again, it is not just a financial thing. Yes, I'm still wishing you financial abundance, but I also want you to be abundant in your mind and in your spirit. Because when you are mentally and spiritually abundant, you are a blessing not only to yourself, but to other people. And I want you to live the most amazing life that you possibly can live. So that is our foundation. We've kind of set the tone. Going into this week's episode, we have wrapped up our Fall Into Self series. Our final episode, Generational Trauma Part 2, launched last week. And again, I want to send a special thanks to Chrissy Diaz, my co-host for that series, for allowing me to bring her vision to life. It was such an amazing series. If you have not had a chance to check it out, please do. There are 7 episodes, and I look forward to having the opportunity to collaborate with her again. But we had some amazing conversations with some beautiful women who are really on this journey of healing and growing and learning and sharing. And so we hope that you will be blessed by partaking in that and being able to live your best life, fall into yourself. We aspire to see you grow. So I will have all of that linked in the show notes. But this week, we're continuing the trend of great people. And I'm really excited about having another return guest back to the podcast. This week, I was very blessed to have Dr. Yvette Weir back on the show. And we had a really great conversation. She is a dentist by trade, but she also has written a book about relationships. She is an artist, as well as she does events. So she does a lot, and she's super intentional with her vision and her passion for people. So we talked about her vision, her passion, her events, what's coming up for the future, just kind of giving you guys an update. So if you will sit back and relax, I hope you will enjoy this conversation and be inspired. And we will be with you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So Yvette, welcome back. I'm so glad you're back with us.
Thank you, Pamela. I so enjoyed coming here the last time, so thank you for the invite again.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm just really excited about having you here because I feel like it has been a little bit since we've had a chance to talk and catch up, just so everybody kind of gets an opportunity to kind of understand your background. Can you give like a brief introduction to the team, to everyone here, so we kind of know, all the things that you have going on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All the different hats that I'm wearing, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So primarily I am a general dentist and I am a creative and an entrepreneur. So I work full time in my practice. And as a creative, I have a book that's out on relationships. I have speaking engagements that I do from time to time. And as an entrepreneur, perhaps what we might speak about some today for sure is the Wild at Heart LLC that I created last year and the events and communities that I bring together.
Absolutely. Because I have to admit, one of the things that always intrigued me from our first interview was the fact that you just seem so intentional with pursuing your dreams. As women, it can be really tricky because we go into one career and we have visions of doing something else, but sometimes we hold ourselves back. But I always remembered from our last interview how you were not going to be deterred. Like you knew that these were things that you wanted to do and you were going to do them. So kind of, why don't you give us a little bit of background about some of the different projects that you have, and then we can kind of dive into Wild at Heart. Because that it seems like to me, it's your baby.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you say intentional, because intentional seems to be like my word for last year, my word for this year, and I think it'll be my word going forward. Because a lot of times we if we don't get ourselves pigeonholed, and even with my lovely profession, I could consider it pigeonholed just because of the diversity of thought and interests that I have, then if we are not sometimes in danger of being pigeonholed, we're in danger of just being all over the place, as some people would think, or one person in particular would say of me. And I would say, you know what, if you really were to look at what I do, though, I might do 4 or 5 things, but they're all closely, tightly centered around a few things that I love, that I think I do well, that I think my spiritual gifts align with. So when people come to me and they say, hey, this is a great opportunity, it all depends. Now, does it relate to things that I have an intrinsic interest in? People, relationships, leadership, creativity. Oh, no, I'm just going to put my money somewhere and then it's just going to grow, exponentially. However, not a fan, not excited about that, So I have been indeed intentional in the last 5 or 6 years and trying not to get taken, just kind of shifted from where I want to be. Like I could do a podcast every day for the next several weeks, several months, because I'm a talker. I talk. I enjoy meeting people, and I enjoy being a part of even a wider audience that I may never see, but in my message goes out there. That I could do every day. But some other things, maybe not, So I think over the last several years, I have realized what it is I really enjoy. And then I do those few things quite a bit.
Okay. And that totally makes sense because as a prior guest, I've always liked to follow my guest journey. And so I've seen how over the past few months since we've talked, how
Mhm.
much you've dived into your business in regards to the events and your retreats, as well as also I've seen your art business bloom as well. So I guess how have you adapted to finding the balance? Because obviously being intentional is so important. Obviously, having the purpose to go out there and pursue these things is the first part. But how do you find the balance? Because you are still a working full-time dentist.
Exactly. Well, we've all been given the same 24 hours, right? And some people know exactly how many seconds or minutes that is. I don't. I'll stick it to hours. I must say, an incredible amount of energy. And it really allows me to be on and relatively to very focused for large tracts of time in any 24-hour period. I always get my spiritual infilling in the morning through my devotionals. That is the way I set up my day. I always, almost 90 to 95% of the times, have some movement connected to my day. It's the exercise, it's a swing class, and I put that up sometimes just for fun. It is a quick, brisk walk before I came on this podcast. And I do things in such really tight times. I was maybe walking through the door 15 minutes before, but I knew I had to get 30, 45 minutes because it's beautiful today. And the last couple of days, it's been rainy, it's been cool, it's been, kind of miserable. So there are certain things, Pamela, that I say every day, I will do these things. This will be a part. And not to mention the all-encompassing social media, right? How you put yourself out to the world, how you promote yourself. That, if anything, I would say, if I needed to put a handle on my time management with anything, to be perfectly honest, it probably would be social media. I enjoy it. I enjoy the creativity that comes from making reels and putting things out there. But you can kind of get lost in the real world, the real world,
Yeah.
and before you know it, time passes. So, I went somewhere and picked up like a couple of books because I said, I'm going to get back to some books. Reels are not going to take over for me. So I mostly have it together, but even I sometimes struggle with, the time that gets consumed, when I know I could be doing something else. And you mentioned art. I have this event coming up next week, so I'll be bringing some art there too. And I'm saying to myself, my art, the kind of art that I do, it needs to dry and it needs to dry well. And therefore I need to do some art. I need to have some new pieces out there. I need to stop procrastinating. And guess what? That could be social media and the whole real stuff that's got me a little bit transfixed and I can't get out to my garage and get some artwork done. So it can be real. Yeah, there's that play on real.
Absolutely.
It could
Yeah,
be.
it's always a real situation trying to balance it out, isn't it? It's crazy. But I understand that because again, like we were talking about before we kind of got started, I have to discipline myself to really not spend a lot of time on social media during the day. It's actually one thing that I try to do like in between meetings when I need like a mindless moment to kind of help me decompress from what I'm absorbing in the meeting. I'll just scroll through really quick and try to answer if I can, but I do that so that I can have that peace of mind. But the terrible thing is one of the first things that I pick up in the morning. Like I was telling you, it's like literally I might do like a Jay Shetty, like calm moment, pray, and then I'm going down straight to social media. So I understand it's like trying to find the balance with what it is. But I mean, like you said, you're about to do an event and what has been the progression to that? Because I mean, I remember when we were talking about you doing your events and how you really just have such a passion for it. What has this year really taught you about leaning into that passion for planning events?
Wow. What a loaded question, Pamela. What has it taught me? This is actually my 1-year anniversary. And so this event that's coming up, this retreat, tent camp retreat that I'll be doing next week, as a matter of fact, will be exactly 1 year. So it's a really good time to do some reflection. I have really enjoyed tremendously the events that I have done. One thing perhaps could be that my events a lot of times are planned inside of, let's say, 60 days. And that is a huge factor of the leader herself, who is a cheetah. So I move quickly, I plan quickly, I make decisions quickly, and not everyone moves at that pace.
Yeah, no, I don't move at that pace. I cannot.
Exactly. So I can turn on a dime and think of something, and it's like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. And so, for example, after next week, where I have my retreat in Hagerstown, Maryland, the very next week I'm in California for a dental conference. And then in November, I am in Dallas for a dental conference. And then in December, I am in Orlando for a dental, kind of like a gala, not so much a conference, but just kind of like a celebration of doctors in my company. And I believe almost all of those, with the exception of the December, flights are already done, accommodations taken care of, and so on and so forth, because I just, I suppose it's something I want to do. It's in my wheelhouse, dentistry, and I love to learn. I love to grow. So it didn't take me too long to hear about it. Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's do it. I don't have a particular retreat for myself planned after this, and I can do it. But it really might be a quantum leap of my mindset to be able to say, instead of maybe doing, say, 3 or 4, which is about how many weekend retreats I did over the past year that I gave people about 60 days notice with, maybe I'll do half of that and give you 3 to 4 months and see how that works.
Yeah, I love the adaptability, because I was going to ask you, going into 2023, like with the events and obviously seeing the fruits of your labor, what is your vision for like 2023 with them? Do you want to do more, or do you want to try to do something a little different next year?
Well, I have done all my weekend retreats very close to home, in my same state and within about 30 minutes of my home, to be perfectly honest. So
Okay.
I would like to really branch out, Pamela, and say, okay, maybe I'll just do 2 or maybe even 1, and not be afraid of, oh, will people come? My core people come, who are mostly in Maryland. If I take it to your state, for example, if I take it to Florida, if people have to fly in, and then I'm sure that's where the 4 month. Let's double the time.
Right.
That's where the 4.5 month time frame will come in. One of the things that I have also gotten this time around is more teamwork with me, more organized, systematic teamwork as I plan this retreat coming up. And I say to myself, I love it. I love it. I have 3 other ladies that are working with me. One of them is a real bossy boss. She bosses me around, and then sometimes she lays low, but she's a bossy boss. But I feel the difference, Pamela, between starting out a great vision, lots of energy, and really hustling in the beginning, which is how a lot of us start our businesses, just really small, at the kitchen table, in the basement, in something really small, and then it just versions, out into something much bigger. And so this time, as I celebrate, and I have these 3 other women, and we have been meeting consistently twice a week for the last several weeks, it feels really good. It feels as if, okay, this is not just my vision, it is a shared vision. And I really believe that next year, as I think about, okay, let's just make this two events probably, that it's going to be even bigger and better. And I hasten to say also that better can happen not necessarily with bigger. Sometimes we get really caught up in the numbers, and it all depends, I suppose, what your metric of success is going to be, right?
Right.
If you had 10 people and you made like a fantastic, tremendous impact, would you feel as good in your heart as if you had 30 or 40 people and, maybe you felt like you really connected with just a quarter of them? It might be the same 10, but, would that have made a difference? So I don't really, really want to say numbers are what's going to be a marker of what's success for me, but what will be success if I really can take this beyond my comfort zone of my neighborhood, beyond my state, and really plan this somewhere else, really plan a getaway. It's not going to be a relaxing yoga kind of getaway, because I'm so sorry, Pam. Anybody coming to me, it's just like high energy. It's just like, it's adventure. We're going to be at it doing stuff, right? There are a lot of people that do that relaxation retreat, and they probably do it very well. And they have their yogas in, and that's not my model. My model is really for the person who wants to stay active and challenged.
And I think that's fine, because I think that there is something for everyone.
Yes.
I really do. I have to admit, I don't know. I'm kind of a variation. I think I've done some action retreats. But then sometimes I feel like, depending on when you catch me, I do need a Zen.
Yes.
But I think the moment of the fact that you're in the space and you're building out that vision that you want to try something larger, I think is great. One thing that struck me as you were talking is you mentioned you have a team. When did you make that decision? Because I do feel like that's one thing that a lot of us struggle with. I know I do, even with this. How do you know when the tipping point is for you need a team?
Right. I think when you when you get tired of being, what is it, cook and bottle washer and doing everything.
Yes, totally.
When you realize that you need balance in your life, because you're doing a lot of other things as well. And a team can really be a trade-off. And I learned this from many months back, when I just gathered up as many retreat resources as I could, and just really dived into it, because anything I do, I really want to do it with as much excellence as possible. I want to give my best into it. I want you to feel like, this was well run. It felt warm. I felt like I got what I came for, or the objectives were met based on, however it was promoted or described, and the resource that I was tapping into was saying, reach out, especially to people that have already been a part of your experience, versus random people necessarily, because they already know you. They know how you move. They know your style, and then, literally, they're not, obviously they're not paying. I'm not paying them. They're not paying me, so it's kind of like, it's a win-win. And I can see myself taking this team, not just for a one-time thing this next week, but taking them into next year, because there are, I have one person who's a great organizer. She puts up her Google sheet. She's always typing things as we're talking. She loves the minutia. I don't. I'm the big picture gal, right? I can do it, but
hard. The devil's in the details, as they say.
Yeah, it's hard to get to. And then, that can add more, mostly I don't tend to be one who gets overwhelmed easily or stressed, but it's just like at the last minute, you're doing too much, when that could have been assigned to someone else who loves to do that.
I understand.
That's their thing. So I really have like the perfect team, and we haven't talked about 2023, but I hope after this that they're ready to move on with me,
Yeah, well, I hope so. Because I think that it's really cool when you can find people that are aligned with your vision. and they're trying to learn, and you're able to build a team together. But I admire the fact that you have one, because it is very difficult taking on that kind of pressure to do all of these things when it's just you. Having that team is definitely critical to helping you be able to push through. So I like the fact that you knew that you needed help, and you kind of cultivated an environment where you could get it, which is great.
Yes.
You did say also another thing in regards to, like, it sounds to me like you're not focusing on profitability at this point.
That would be correct. It's nail it down, Pamela.
Sorry. I mean, I like to keep it a buck, but I feel like you're now focusing on profitability, and I wanted to hear your journey about that, because I have my thoughts on it, but I'm very curious.
Yes.
How did you come to that decision where it was like, it's all about right now, I need to build the vision. I need to build the dream, the profits. I'll be okay.
Yes. As long as I'm not losing, I never want to lose, and I've never lost. As a matter of fact, there was a time in the very beginning when I was really hustling for numbers that I gave scholarships. I went to my professional friends and I'm like, hey, you want to give a scholarship to someone? And I'm over that. I'm over that. I can no longer give scholarships. You have to pay your way. But in the beginning, you are a novelty to people, in the sense of, some of my friends, I know you, but I don't know that you have done this before, right? And you want me to come where? And it be in a tent. And, so you've got to be so much the salesperson. And I'm like, yeah, I could sell ice to Eskimo probably. But I kind of see Wild at Heart as, and it's really funny that you just hit the nail on the head. I'm building a foundation for it. I'm building credibility. I don't have a lot of following on Audacious Retreats, which is where Wild at Heart is mostly promoted. But my son said something to me that really just warmed my heart. He said, you might not have like 1K even or more on Audacious Retreats, but you have 3 pages. And when you total them up, I'm like, yes, son. when you total them, it's you'll get the numbers that you're looking for, which is again why, as we're growing in our craft and in our business, we just cannot get lost in the mire of numbers. Like, I would love to be able to say my influence is 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 strong. But everything you do is a ripple in the pond, right? And at the beginning of this year, I said, I want to impact, and I was very modest with this. I think I said 1,000, or maybe I said 10. Maybe I said 10. I don't know. Because when I check my different pages, they're all set to a professional mode. So they'll tell you, oh, in the last month, you've reached 10,000 people here. You've reached 4,000 people here. I've done multiple podcasts. I did a radio podcast on WGTS, which is our major contemporary Christian radio station in my area. Uh-huh. And they used to have, and the irony is, it used to be a dentist that on a Saturday morning would interview an author. And I got an opportunity to be interviewed. And I think it ran twice because somebody said, oh, it's on again. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so if you think that reach might have been 15, 20, 30 all by itself, right, then you realize that, you can measure what you're doing in different ways that are different from maybe a traditional way. So, as I build my foundation by establishing my professionalism, my ability to deliver, my reach, it is indeed kind of hard, Pamela, to be making money. Let's just be real. To be making money and doing that at the same time as a new business owner,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why we have 9 to 5s.
I totally agree. I kind of think it takes the pressure off in a way. Even though I think people would probably disagree because it's like you're pursuing your vision and working a full-time job. But I totally understand exactly what you're saying, because I think a lot of people forget influence should be cultivated. And when I say that influence should be cultivated, I think there has to be a point where people recognize that you have to build genuine connections with your community first before
Yes.
you try to sell them anything. Like
Mhm.
you need to focus on that. So like for me with this podcast, I've been here almost 3 years. In February of 2023, it'll be 3 years. I've never monetized my podcast.
Mhm.
I get offers all the time. I got one today.
Mm.
I told the person no, because I'm not at that point where I feel like that's the route I want to go into.
Okay.
Monetization is a beautiful thing. I've been monetized before. Before I did the podcast, I had a blog. I've worked with several brands. I understand it. It can be very profitable. But when I made this decision to start the podcast, I started this podcast because I knew that there was a need for this space and I wanted to create the community. I said,
Yes.
I had to focus on that. And so that's where I totally understood when you said it's like marketing to the people that you know, and then that expands and grows, and then you build new people, and totally get, you're right. If you add up all the numbers between all your pages, you're right where you need to be, but it'll never be enough if you focus on the numbers.
Exactly.
Focus on the interactions with the people. So I admire that you have that same vision, because that means that, to me, you're giving your heart to your people and trying to create that experience so that they will come back and that they will tell other people, and it will naturally grow.
I love that because I very rarely boost or promote even on social media. So the growth is organic,
Mm-hmm.
and the people that are there are you have a core, and the core will grow, at whatever pace, but it's a core. It's not random people that I don't even know who that person is. No, I see the same people looking at my stories. I look at their stories as well, and it's a back and forth flow, And yes, you're right. I give my heart to whatever I do. Even today at work, there was a patient who she had a lot more going on, and patients oftentimes trust me to open up and share things that have nothing to do with dental, because I think they sense a listening ear, maybe an empathetic doctor who will give the time, and so I listened to her, shared a little bit, of my own story. And then I looked at her, and one of the things I do, you can look at a person, and I want my patient to feel and sense me. I'm not staring at you, but I'm also giving you a little bit of a prolonged eye contact. This was a hygiene patient as well, so she wasn't my primary patient. I was checking her. So I just gave her some sustained, maybe put it that way, some sustained eye contact to let her know, I feel what you're going through. And I hope that when I see you 6 months from now, that you'll have better, more positive news to share about the other things that are going on in your life,
Wow. Yeah.
And that doesn't happen all the time, because I just pray and I say, God, if there really is somebody that needs more of me, lead me to that person. 90% of my patients just need me as a dentist, and 10% are like, you wouldn't believe what's happening. No,
Right.
tell me.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to just the heart of who you are, because again, that, trying to be that person who lets their spiritual gifts lead them and build that connection. So I definitely think that that will continue to manifest as you're building your business and growing it and everything. I guess one question I would have for you, and since we were talking about monetization and all those good things, what has been one of the most special things that you have achieved since starting your business?
One of the most special things that I've achieved. Okay. So I started with a bang. Pamela. I had 3 events in 3 months. Talk
Oh, wow.
about cheetah, just because I said, okay, I'm bringing communities together. We have been so apart and separate and divided sometimes and whatnot, and alone over the COVID period of time and everything. And so I'm bringing them together on leadership, on empowering women, on adventure. And for some reason, I felt compelled to roll those all out at once. So October was one, November was another, or November was two. And it was just like I needed to say, here's everything. You've seen everything. Okay.
Right.
I'm not going to say necessarily, okay, that was the most special thing. The most special thing I would say was being able to sustain activities and events for the community at a rate of about one major event, whether a weekend or one day we took a bus trip from here to New York on a Sunday. Another time we did an adventure high ropes course, which was women only. So I've been able to sustain activities and events and people coming on the rate of about every 2.5 to 3 months for the past year.
Oh, wow.
So there's always something happening. If you follow me, it's like you can say, Yvette, what's up? What's up? I'm coming down, and I love out of towners because, that's even double confidence in me and my ability to deliver that you'd say, I would actually spend extra to come down and drive down and be there with you, because literally that has been the frequency. So I don't know if that's going to be 2023. Like I said, if I do something radically different in my spirit and my mindset and say, take 4 months and plan something instead of 2 months, then it might be maybe, one major and maybe 2 smaller events. Mm-hmm. And, like a 1-day event. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I'm always trying, Pam, to see how I can cross over this same passion, this same love and dentistry, because I've spent so many years in dentistry. So I started off, to be honest, wanting to coach doctors or office managers. And, we have such big egos, and maybe I haven't really pushed it as much as I should have, but that's where I saw a real need, a lack of leadership in my own industry. We are fabulous clinicians, but don't know how to manage people. Right. And I have somewhat sidestepped from coaching directly in my industry to wanting to do executive retreats. Let's get back to the monetization. Let's get back to that.
Right.
That's where it is. That would be my core. And then my passion child would be, all these smaller things I do on a weekend. But the core really would be, having some serious and good team building efforts with doctors, with dentists, with physicians, with PT groups. And, that's where a team could really come in handy, or a virtual assistant would come in handy to doing those, reaching out and making that happen for me while I'm in the middle of people's mouths. They're doing their stuff, I really think that's the next level. I don't need my team as I have it now to do that for me. I really need a VA to be making some contacts. I really need an email list to go out because I know what I'm capable of doing. Right. And then I can have this team once we get a few executive retreat opportunities. And this is something that is a corporate business concept more than it is in healthcare. We just don't do that. But it doesn't say that we don't need it, but that's just not how we operate.
But again, it sounds like you're about to carve your lane. And I think that is like the key to it. It's funny because as I'm like thinking of things as, we're winding in, when you're going into 2023, knowing that that's part of your vision, are you going to be taking like any time to like like retreat yourself where you can just sit down and map out your plan? Like, how do you go about structuring your stuff? I know you're the ideas person, but what are you thinking like this year about, retreating yourself so that you can give yourself that space to really map everything out?
I love it. I love it, Pamela. I'm about to take myself to Alaska and retreat myself.
That sounds fun.
I mean, I do have a lot of trips planned before the year is out,
Oh,
but
nice.
they're not exactly what you described.
Okay.
And whether I'm retreating myself as well as just taking up a bunch of books and just like I do put my electronics down a week of Christmas, and my friends and family have gotten used to that. And I'll say goodbye and Merry Christmas to everyone, and I'll put it down the 24th or the 25th of December, and I pick it back up like the 1st of January, and I literally just let it go dead, right? Sometimes people have said, "What about your kids? What about them?" I mean, I grew up without a phone, and my parents were okay. They trusted I was going to be all right. But it's a beautiful idea, because I'm either wanting to always grow or be a better version of myself. So why not have Wild at Heart be a better version of itself? It started one way, and it really is a desire of mine to do executive, which maybe my docs would get a kick out of that. Oh, you calling me executive now? Yes. Yes, that's the buzzword.
Right.
An executive retreat to just really take and I came close to it last year, and then it didn't happen. And that was about a year ago, and it was in an office that I knew. A young doctor had just gotten into an office in Florida. And then I just kind of, let it go, because sometimes we will seek the path of least resistance. And so I know it's easier to grab friends and friends of friends and the odd other person passing by, and, the people that I get on social media, and say, "Hey, come join me," than it is to really go to my peers and say, "I'm coming to you not as a clinician. I'm coming to you to share something that's never been done before." And you're right. You're right. As in carve out, that's something I am fearless and bold with, but just a little bit lazy. I mean,
That's what we all are.
yeah, I can do it, but just a little bit late. Week after week goes by. So it is a great idea. It's a wonderful idea to take a couple of days, even 2 days, hole yourself up, sit down, and kind of put some bones together. And the skin and the flesh will come later, but put a framework down for how I might see it working. And to be honest, with all these dental conferences that I'm going to, back to back to back, that's my networking opportunities. That's my time to be, placing my card in people's hands and telling them, this is what I do also, and this is what your office probably needs. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just, and the only reason I always like bring it up is, one, I'm thinking of doing it more myself going into 2023. But then two, I'm also thinking you're so busy and you're so movement. You're always moving, always doing things. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it is very difficult to like map out everything. Cause like I'll wake up sometimes and I'll be like, okay, I want to do this, and I'll write it down, or I'll be you'll be doing different things, and a thought come to you about what you want to accomplish. And sometimes I'm like, we as women who have visions of doing our dreams and our passions, we have to carve out space for us to put these visions on paper, write it down, make it plain. Like you said, it may be only the bones, but the bones are the foundation to something great if we can just give ourselves that time to do it. So I was just curious, especially because I would love to see you do an executive program. I think that sounds like a really cool idea.
Yes.
And it would be a great resource and help. So I definitely support you, and I'll have you back to talk about it. But, give yourself that space. And I think saying that to you is a reminder to me to give myself that space. So thank you.
Thank you. And now that you're saying that, I'm like, could I get some other women who are like ourselves, who might be thinking that we grab an Airbnb together? We don't have to entertain each other. Nobody's profiting from this. We're just sharing maybe a beautiful space somewhere in the Adirondacks, somewhere where there's skiing, somewhere where there's sun, whichever, and 4 or 5 of us. And I don't know if it'll happen because, you know, me, like I do move quickly with things, and other people like, I need like more months, more time to plan. But I could see us doing our own parallel thing in our own rooms, in our own space. And then I could also see us coming together at the end and just really brainstorming for each other's businesses, you know?
Absolutely. I think that's a great accountability group opportunity.
Yes.
And I definitely, it's funny that we're sharing that, because I think to me, that's one of those things that women can do without having to like pay to do it. Like, sorry, I'm not trying to like knock the hustle or anything.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I think even if you're like just getting started out and you have like a friend group and you have like-minded people, because a lot of us are in those positions now as we are like growing and evolving, you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are positive and trying to build and craft their dreams. You easily could put that together, because you're right. It's not hard to get an Airbnb nowadays in a beautiful space. Yes. Take a day, 24, 48 hours. Imagine what you could do uninterrupted.
It's called the accountability retreat.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. It's like we're sitting here mapping out a plan for another. I'm like, yeah, I would love one, because I have a few friends who are also in that same mindset of trying to get businesses and everything started. It's just, you know, the cycle of life. We're all extremely busy running from one thing to another and forcing ourselves to take that time to just sit in stillness and actually focus on ourselves would probably be a benefit to each of us right about now.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I love the idea of Q4 planning. At some point, at some point before we roll all the way into the next year.
Right.
You know? And I love the idea of trans,
like transference. Like, yes.
I don't know what to say after trans. It's just like trans is just like you there, here, there, you know.
Yes. Transference of energy here. Yes, thoughts and creative.
Energy, ideas.
Yeah.
Be really interesting to have someone who's not in, like, you know, we're in our different spaces. Like, you know, you're growing a candle industry. Somebody's getting into retreats, getting into, you know, and it's like, hey, not only is it what kind of ideas could you have? And this is not like daily. This is just like at the end of the day, we just spend half a day or whatever together, and we're just killing it with boosting each other up and just a collective brain dump, so to speak, you know?
Yeah.
And then kind of ending with, like, what kind of context do you have? Contacts that I could benefit from, and vice versa. Right?
Yep.
Because I'm going to this December event that I'm going to, which is a gala for the doctors in the company. You're allowed to bring someone with you. And here's my thing, Pamela. I definitely don't want to waste the company paying for a second person by not bringing someone, right?
Right.
But I kind of want somebody who can kind of fend for themselves, right? And by that, I mean, like I love networking. I love connecting with people. So I want you to be able to do that too. I want you to be able to just, you know what I mean? Just find your own way without clinging to me the entire, or being afraid because, oh, you know, this is either not my industry, or I'm afraid to go up to people and I'm like, who's that going to be? Right.
Yeah.
You know? And so I reached out to a friend of mine who is in the same city as where it's going to be. And he's heavily into leadership, right? And I said, you know what? And it's a he. And I said, they probably are giving you a guest for the same room, but you live in the same city, so you can go home, right? It's perfect. You can come in and who knows, and he is the kind of person that he says, we could go in and we could be hanging with farmers. I agree. We could be hanging with engineers. I agree. We are totally fine in our element or out of our culture, professional culture element. And so I said he'd be perfect, but yeah, it'd be still nice to fly someone in on the dime of the.
I love it.
Hope nobody's listening here, but who would also really, be inspired. Because when you go to these year-end kind of events, the way that they're describing it, 25th anniversary that they're celebrating, it's like rah, rah with the opening speakers and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then it's just the opportunity because, people bring their spouses all the time. Yep. And they may or may not be heavily involved in the industry, and they enjoy it nevertheless. And there's always a room that you go around and just, get free floss, whitening stuff and whatever. But yeah, I love this idea. And we have to explore this a little bit more. An end of year accountability retreat, which is just basically, we're just paying for the accommodations and we grocery shop together, and you get in your own zone of where you want to be.
Oh, absolutely. Because again, like I said, obviously I think a retreat would be cool, but I hope even someone listening to it can be inspired to say, even with your friends,
yes,
this could be something that you start within yourself, because I think that's the thing as women, we need to come together and support each other and create space for each other. Absolutely. And it doesn't, and that's one of the easiest things to do. Cause I totally agree. I think this would make sense. I would love to do it personally, because it is very difficult for me sometimes to carve out time like that for myself. I do it. I do take solo staycations, but when I'm on staycation, by the time I've gone, I'm so tired. I really just take pleasure in reading a book and sitting down and eating a snack and going to bed without someone calling my name.
Yes. I think a lot of times, as you said earlier too, you suspect that I'm always on the move.
Yeah.
And I really am. If I'm not always on the move, I'm always being called to give to someone, whether it's, I'm in a giving profession. I'm being called on Saturday afternoon to be the doc that people walk with from my church. Once a month, you walk with a doc. And it's been going back and forth between a physician and myself. Go walk with a doc, and I have to give them a health nugget before we walk. And it's just like weekly. Every Friday evening, I kind of have a spiritual gathering, a spiritual and health gathering. So that's always. So then either when do I get filled myself? And most importantly, instead of planning things on the run, which can happen, but it's might not get the same results as being systematic and being methodical. And you really need to, as you say, carve out that space. Let's be real. You got to carve out that space and that time to be able to do that. Yeah. And that's what I lack. If it's not everything else, then it's like I do have 3 kids. And so maybe during the holidays, it would be like, okay, we're going to gather together and the family's going to be together and all of that. And it's just like, when do we? And that's what we need.
Absolutely. I mean, because I commend the fact that you've been able to accomplish so much without, really having that area of time. Because that is impressive, to say the least. And to be as booked and busy as you are, it is just so inspiring. As we're kind of wrapping up, that kind of leads me to a question. Knowing the things that you've kind of like started to set in your mindset for 2023. I know we're just in the beginning of Q4.
Right.
Do you already have a word in mind of what your vision is going into 2023 for yourself? Like a word of the year yet, or a vision yet that you've kind of started deciding that you're going to kind of move forward with?
Well, I started at the top of the hour, literally to say being intentional had been my 21 year, seemed to be my 22. And really, I see that still as a very key word, because, yes, things do happen on the move, but even then it's because I'm still focusing on things that I think are important to me and are a part of my purpose here on life. I heard a really favorite influencer, a doctor friend on Instagram and Facebook say, when I die, I want to just be empty. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to just go to, like, I would have given everything that I can. And I'm not going down to my grave full of what? Full of ideas, full of money, full of, visions. No, I have emptied myself. I have given everything that I could have,
Yeah.
And so being intentional about really thinking. Thank you so much, sis, for putting that thought, an accountability retreat. It just sounds so beautiful. putting that thought in now makes me feel, you could do so much. And again, if you were surrounded by like-minded people that are doing their own thing, that's the most important thing. That's why I said I want to take somebody to Orlando with me, but they have to be able to do their own thing. I am extremely gregarious and much the extrovert, but I also want people around me to be able to do their own thing.
Right.
And talk to their own people that they see next to them and so on and so forth, without the feeling of I have the presence of someone waiting for me.
Right.
And maybe that's a little bit my kind of go with the flow, but go with the flow kind of person, So I'm going to be really intentional about getting back to executive retreats, because you know what, Pamela, I believe that can incorporate the coaching, the retreats, and dentistry all in 4 hours, and even a bit of adventure, because I'm gonna run them around somewhere.
I bet I wouldn't expect anything less from you.
Nothing less. So that would really just tie everything in. I'm not trying to get my dental colleagues, professionals out for an entire weekend, especially if I am pitching to them working with their staff, because staff come with family. They come with significant others. I'm not trying to do that, but we can do that for 4 hours twice a year, right?
Right.
Yeah, we can do that for 4 hours with the people in the group. And, I know that when you move people away from their normal and customary setting, you even see a person. I've walked by people and not even recognize them sometimes because they're in different clothes than I am used to seeing them in, So I know that when you take people away and yes, make people just a little bit uncomfortable, that we're right in the place where growth can happen. And we're right in the place where we can start really forming a good synergy, because there's so many cliques and so many little undercurrents that occur in my industry you wouldn't believe. I mean, we hide it as best as we can and we see you as patients. But if you're really kind of attuned or in tune, it'd be like, okay, they seem all right, but okay.
Something going on, huh?
Something. It's not quiet around here. I don't hear laughter. I don't hear them talking to each other. And, that'll happen more when we start to function more as a team. So even if I were to have one, you see, I'm stepping through my accountability right now.
I see that, like you're doing it like right now. I know, because
we're gonna have to revisit this in December somewhere. But
I know. I'm sitting here totally thinking, yeah, you're in it. Like I've already figured out the episode title. I'm like, she's just like right in the point where she belongs.
Yes.
Right in the point where you belong. Like that is like where you're at right now. And I think that's great. I've loved seeing your continued intentional progression. I think it's just been amazing. And I'm so excited for you with your last event for the year. I was going to say my last question. Why don't you tell us where we can support you? Go ahead and put all your socials out there. I'll put everything in the show notes, everybody. But I want to make sure if you're interested in following that we can support you.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. So When I talk about my retreats, the events that I do, it's primarily promoted on Audacious Retreats with a C in the middle and S in there. So you'll find it. Okay. Audacious Retreats. And I walk and live and breathe the fitness, vegan, health lifestyle. So I also promote quite a bit on Fit Vegan Blogger. And then in the middle, which gets squeezed sometimes by the big brother and the big sister, is FlowDoc21. But the irony is FlowDoc21 still has the most followers because that was my initial page that I started. So FlowDoc21 is also where I have fun. I'm on Facebook as well at WildHeart21. A lot of the information anyhow from Instagram flows over to WildHeart21. Yeah, too many things I'm holding.
That's okay.
And then the final thing is, my baby that I birthed last year, December 1st, the Relationship Playbook for Women. Yeah. 7, and I almost now I'm thinking I should have said in parentheses and men. 7 steps to act, 7 questions to ask you and your soulmate can be found on etsy.com. And I say and men because, half of my buyers are now men, whether they're curious, whether I know more men, whether they're more quick to purchase than women, I don't know. But, I have a lot of men buying the title. So,
that's good. That means that, hey, at least everybody's trying to figure it out, how to find some love.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. I know we didn't really talk too much about love today, but we'll have to revisit that conversation because I know that is your baby. You have so many babies, but I love the fact that you can handle them all.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. God is good. God is good.
Amen. That's why I said you are just right in the place where you belong.
Right.
In the flow and just making it happen. So I really admire that. And I appreciate you coming back and talking to us and giving us an update of where you are so we can continue to support you.
I appreciate the opportunity. And Pamela, can I ask you what your word is? What your word will be?
Now, I don't know if I'm going to have a word.
Okay.
Next year is my 50th. I'm turning 50 in February.
Uh-huh. You look great. You look great.
Oh, thank you. So I have decided that next year it's going to be called my Golden Renaissance year.
Ah.
I need to continue to process because one thing I stopped doing last year is I stopped making like vision boards and stuff like that. I actually make a list of things that I'm leaving behind in that year, and I carry it. Like I have it on my cell phone as my screensaver as a constant reminder that these are the things that I have decided to remove from my life so that I can step into the next version. So going into 2023, I definitely am calling it the Golden Renaissance. I am really totally embracing. I am in love with myself. And it's been about 2 years now. So I'm very excited about that. A word, I don't have one. I normally will have like 4 or 5.
Wow.
Yes, I have like a motto. I take it really serious. I know it sounds crazy. I put a motto and the things I'm leaving behind, I carry it around with me. I journal about it to make it very intentional as well, because I agree intentionality is the key. Mm-hmm. One thing that I will say is probably going to be a word now that I keep seeing it with this Golden Renaissance. It's going to be acceptance. That's one of my first words, like accepting who I am and being the person that I am, the most full actualized version of myself. Mm-hmm. I think accountability will come into there because you got to be accountable if you're going to be able to accept yourself. But so I'm sorry. I know that was like a long roundabout way, but yeah.
Now you know how I feel.
I do. It is so hard to like narrow it down to one. That's why I said I think I put my phone down, but yeah, I had 1, 2, 3, 4. I had 5. 5 words of 2022. Peace, love, faith, protection, and prosperity.
Okay.
Were my 5. So I'm going to hopefully not make it as complex for 2023.
Well, when you have 5 words and now that you've come all the way, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be flipping the interview, but
no, you're not. Please.
But as you come down to the end of the year, do you see those words as having guided you in some kind of way, or informed you more, or been a real part of your journey, especially because you have so many? How did you go in and out of those words?
I have to admit, looking at it, and obviously the year is not fully over, but yes. And I will say that have all played a role. And I won't say that they've all been at the same time, but they have come up quite a bit because it has required that I prioritize my peace.
Mm-hmm.
I had to lean into loving myself so
Mm-hmm.
that I could be the most honest version of me.
Mm-hmm.
My faith had to get stronger. I have to make sure I pray constantly over myself so that I don't lose focus. Protection and prosperity, yes, because this is the year that I bet on myself.
Yes.
I left my job of 14 years for another job
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted an opportunity to grow and expand financially,
Mm-hmm.
as well as with my skill sets. I bet on myself and I won. Because normally I would never have done that. As someone who takes care, I'm a caregiver to my mother, my sister. I wasn't willing to take those chances before with myself.
Mm-hmm.
So those words were so ingrained in me that yes, I will honestly say that they have all come up. They come up very often,
Mm-hmm.
especially especially now, even leading into Q4, because it's like I'm trying to. How do I say it? I think sometimes we all go through those, we're all on this intentional journey trying to grow. And then sometimes you get situations in your life that try to pull you back.
Mm-hmm.
You used to be, make you question, are you really on the right path? Make you doubt possibly yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to lean into those words. I've had to stop myself and remind myself that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Mm.
I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm leading into my faith. I know God will protect me because I can be a little bit of a soft heart.
Yeah.
But
we all have that from time to time.
we do. But you got to trust yourself. So yes, I will say that they have definitely been, because I've had some experiences this year like no other. But
Yes.
I survived, and I feel better.
Uh-huh.
I have felt in a very long time.
Awesome.
So I totally, I wish I had the energy that you have. I'm trying to be healthier. I definitely watch your content, and I'm not 100% vegan anymore, but I used to be. I still eat vegan though. We try to eat vegan like maybe 4 or 5 days out of the
Okay.
and I don't really eat a lot of dairy or anything like that because it's just terrible for me. But I definitely love your spirit and your vision for yourself and for helping other people. So I'm very glad that we got a chance to have this call today. It was just what I needed.
Oh, praise the Lord. I have enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yes. So we will definitely be talking and following your journey, because I have to have you back now. We have to figure out how to talk about love.
Oh, and that's what turns the whole world, where everything revolves around relationships. So,
Absolutely. I might have to read your book. I'm single, so I'm trying to just,
Tonight. Let me drop it in the mail tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, I may have to get it because I've told everyone I feel like falling in love, so I'm open to it now.
Ooh,
So, I feel like falling in love, so that might be definitely something to check out. So we'll have to talk about that.
Absolutely.
But I want to thank you for coming on this week, and I really appreciate the opportunity to just share space and amazing conversations with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Pamela.
Awesome. And guys, I will have all of Yvette's information in the show notes, and I will be back next week with a new episode. I hope you have an amazing rest of the weekend, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.